Hey everyone, welcome back. If you've ever had a snake escape, many of you can probably relate to just how stressful that can be. In today's video, we are going to talk about a few of the effective methods that I have used to track down a lost snake that's in a house, and some tips and tricks that you can use to prevent escapes from happening either again or to begin with. So, if you're a snake owner or you're just curious, stick around, as that's what we'll be talking about today. I'm Jack, and you're watching Python Addiction. Hey everyone, thanks for joining. Well, I can say from personal experience, I understand how much of a nightmare it can be when you come to pet your snake or go check on them and you find that they're missing. It's happened to me on a couple of different occasions, and it's one of those things that it's very stressful. And a lot runs through your head when it comes to, oh my god, they're missing, what am I going to do, where am I going to find them? The first thing you want to do is stop and take a breath. Check the enclosure first. There is always a good chance that they're just playing camo inside of their enclosure and hiding underneath the bedding, or if you have different deco in the enclosure, that they're hiding somewheres in the deco itself. I've had that happen several different times, especially with like my Vietnamese Blue Beauty. He loves to bury himself into his substrate when he's going in the shed. You can't find him anywhere in the enclosure. You think that he's escaped, but he's right underneath. He's going in the shed. He's staying where he's nice and comfortable for his shed cycle. But it's still something that freaks me out every time he does it, because I always think that he escapes because his particular species is an escape artist in several different instances. So it's things to take into consideration when you're seeing that your snake's not there. Calm down and take a look at their enclosure first. If they are not in their enclosure, or that you see that their enclosure is actually open, or evidence that they actually did likely escape, then you're going to want to kind of think like a snake. You're going to want to look in the darker areas, smaller holes and little cubbied spaces. Look more towards the bottom around the floor and around the baseboards a lot of the time. Depending on the snake, you might want to look up towards like the curtains. If you have shelves, look around the shelves in areas that can be otherwise hidden. You also want to look for spots that might be warm spots, as they will often seek areas that are either dark or dark and warm as areas to hide. Another trick, and this is one if you've got a lot of like furniture or stuff like that in the room that you're looking at, is to take your cell phone and use a selfie stick. Press the record on your phone and actually use that to look behind the shelves and bookcases and underneath like beds or any furniture or anything like that, instead of moving it all over the place. And the reason why I suggest that is you don't want to potentially scare your snake and for them to potentially get injured when you go to move things around, if they dart one direction or another while you're moving things. So be slow and patient in your search. Using that selfie stick and then looking over the video afterwards is a great way to look and see where they might be without surprising them or startling them and then causing them to potentially move to a different area or for them to potentially get injured if you're trying to get to them real quick. So, things to take into consideration. Stuff that I don't recommend doing. I don't recommend trying to set a trap of any sort or anything to try to get them to, like, I know some people have tried like clothes baskets and stuff like that. Don't try to do anything that could potentially startle them, and don't try to bait them specifically with like rodents or food that you have to just leave out, as that generally doesn't actually work. What you can do is you can take a hide and put a hide on the floor or something like that in a warm, dark place in the room in hopes that they'll go to that hide. Another thing that I do suggest is keeping their enclosure open. And that is something that I have actually had success with on one occasion so far with my Russo girl, who decided to push open her bin and apparently wandered around the room overnight and went right back into her home after she was done wandering around. I know that she was wandering around because she decided to leave a present for me on the floor, and a lot of the other stuff that was around on the floor and some of the things that were right here in the desk area that I have right here were on the floor. So I know that she had a little fun roaming around, but where did she end back up? Right back into her enclosure. She went to where she knew it was safe, it was warm, and she didn't have to worry about things. So that is something that can work. Another trick that can work is check at nighttime. Most snakes move around and are more active at night than they are during the day. So you can use something like a black light and turn out the lights and follow the circadian rhythm that you have established for your snake and check when they're more active. Take a look around, see where they're at. Other options that some people have used are setting up little webcams or cameras into the room to kind of see where things might move around and see if they catch where the snake has been going if it's a prolonged escape. Now, how can you prevent this from happening in the first place? There's no 100% guaranteed way of preventing some escapes, especially with younger babies and stuff like that. We need to have air supply and ventilation, and some babies can potentially be small enough to still squeeze through or otherwise get through most of those types of enclosures, especially if you're using tub-based enclosures instead of something like the glass enclosures and stuff like that. But you want to try to do your best in making sure that you're using an enclosure that is going to be secure for the type of snake that you have. If you're using glass enclosures that have the mesh or whatnot on the top of it, you want to make sure that that's all nice and secure, that there's no holes. And if it's a plastic lid, like some of the like the Zoomed style enclosures, if you can push up on the areas and create little gaps with where the top lid is, then those are areas of concern that you might want to address. Sometimes you can use some tape and tape it down in the extra areas if you don't need to take the lid on and off all the time. If you need to take the lid on and off, you want to make sure to get extra clips, or find something that might be a little bit more secure. For front opening enclosures that are glass, you want to make sure that you're securing the however it latches at the bottom and at the top. Most of the enclosures that I have seen only secure in one spot. They have like a clip at the bottom. They don't have anything other than a little bit of a pressure clip up at the top. I had to make for myself, as another example, for my Vietnamese Blue Beauty. Is currently in a 2.5 foot tall arboreal enclosure. I had to actually create a hole through the two plastic parts that connect on the glass to put a bolt through the top to make sure that the top couldn't get pushed out. The bottom has a clip and a little spot for a lock at the bottom, so I just used 2 screws, but I had to make that the change or the alteration to the enclosure to make sure it was secure on both sides. Many of my PVC enclosures I don't have to worry so much about, as long as I'm putting the right size snake into that enclosure. The PVC enclosures that I use all, for the most part, have either sliding panels that go slide side to side. A couple of them have to where there's twist locks that the doors fold down, but they all have locks. So there's no way for those panels to get opened or moved out of the way very easily when it comes to them being locked up and secure. The only thing that I have to make sure, like I had just said, is that I'm putting the right size snake into that enclosure. I won't use one of those larger enclosures for a smaller snake. Like the 4 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot enclosures that I have, I won't put Mocha, which is my Cape York python, into one of those because some of the vent holes are just a little bit too big, and there's a potential that she could potentially try to squeeze through one of those. So that's not something that I'll do in using one of those enclosures for her. So it's making sure that you're using the right size enclosure for the snake as well. One of the other things that you can do, and it's not necessarily a preventative method of preventing an escape, but it's a way to contain things if your snake does escape. And that's kind of what I implore here with my snake room, is everything is in one room, and I kind of snake-proofed the room itself to make sure that nothing can get out of the room. So if they happen to get out of the enclosure, I'm okay and knowing that they're not going to get out of the room. I make sure that there's no gap underneath my door. I make sure that there's no holes or ways that they can get into the walls or anything like that. My heating vent is all sealed up and it has a nice micro filter on it so they can't go through that. So I took extra steps into making sure that the room itself is essentially escape proof for a snake. So they're going to stay in here if they do get out. I don't have to go worrying about searching the entire house. I know that they're going to be in this room. So that's something else to take into consideration. So, let me know in the comments below if you're someone who has actually had a snake escape on them before. And also, let me know if you found them, if you have had that problem. And also, in the comments below, if you've had something escape before, let me know what methods you've used in order to find them, or where did you end up finding your snake? Because I know a lot of people, a lot of the things that I have read, people have found them in their closets, in their shoes, some of them hiding behind the refrigerator areas near the compressor motor. Lots of different areas where I've seen and read different stories of where people have found their snakes that have escaped. And it can take a couple of days, a couple of weeks, a couple of months. So that's one big thing to have, is a little bit of patience. You may not find your snake if they've escaped right away. It may take a little while, but there are generally good chances that you will find them if you actually look for them on a regular basis and kind of think like a snake and look in areas where they might actually try to hide. So if you like today's video, please do hit that thumbs up button, as that lets me know that you like this type of content. And as always, if you've made it this far into the video, and if you haven't done so already, please do subscribe to the channel. And while you're at it, click that notification icon. And until next time, I love you all. Thanks for watching. I'm Jack, and this is Python Addiction.